The 3.25 Challenge League, Settlers of Kalguur, is launching soon. In this video, I want to go over everything we currently know about Settlers League mechanic and rewards, potential farming strategies, as well as the implications this league mechanic will have on what build you should play. That way you can jump into the league mechanic with everything you need to hit the ground running. And oh boy, is there a lot going on in this league mechanic. I'm going to start by going over the broad concepts and features in this league, and then dive into each of the different mechanics themselves. Without further ado, let's dive in. This league revolves around the settlement of Kingsmarch, a new town you can visit. Over the course of the league, you'll be investing in the town to help it grow, unlocking and upgrading new features, as well as managing the workers running its many buildings. Each of these buildings has its own mechanic associated with it, all of which play a part in giving you the loot and crafting power you're looking for here. Almost everything you do in Kingsmarch requires spending gold, a currency that is brand new to Path of Exile. Throughout the league, gold will drop from monsters throughout the game. Gold is non-tradable, automatically picked up when your character walks near it, and is stored in a UI counter above your item inventory. Not only is gold the primary method of progressing in Settlers of Kalguur, but it's also used for a few services provided by NPCs, so you're going to want to farm as much of it as you can. Gold is considered an item and is scaled by effects that scale item drops, so you should be able to farm a lot more of it by juicing your maps. Something that's central to Settlers is a concept that's also brand new to Path of Exile: real-time progression. Many mechanics into Kingsmarch progress in real time. That is to say, things will have timers that continue to progress whether you're there or not. These timers will continue to tick down even if you're offline, allowing you to log into a bounty of rewards waiting for you. Or to workers who stopped work because you ran out of gold to pay them. NPCs that have rewards for you to collect will have icons over their heads to indicate this, and while you're logged into the game, you'll receive notifications when various tasks are completed. While gold is the main fuel that keeps Kingsmarch going, workers are the primary thing you'll be spending that gold on. Workers are hired NPCs that you assign to various buildings within Kingsmarch to generate resources for you, collect rewards and currency, or to speed up the progress of whatever that building is doing. Workers have traits denoting what tasks they're good at. Be sure to assign workers to matching tasks. You don't want to send someone specialized in mining to guard your valuable shipments. The pirates will just make quick work of them. Workers can be hired from the tavern for a hiring fee of gold. Once hired, you will have to pay an hourly wage, also in gold, for them to continue working for you. Upgrading the tavern, presumably, grants access to workers with higher tier traits, with accompanying higher fees. Workers can permanently die, causing you to lose them and need to hire new ones to replace them. Only a few buildings can cause this to happen, and all of them will warn you up front and give you the option to choose less risky undertakings to minimize or even eliminate that risk. Most of what you and your workers do in Kingsmarch won't directly give you item or currency rewards. Rather, you'll be getting resources. Resources can eventually be spent to get item or currency rewards, but you need to get the resources first. There are 4 categories of resources: ore, smelted bars, thaumaturgic dust, and crops. Ore is gathered in maps then processed by workers in Kingsmarch. Thaumaturgic dust is made by disenchanting items, crops are grown by your workers in town, and smelted bars are made by a process that is currently unknown to us. All of these resources can be exchanged for currency and item rewards via shipping, but a few of them have additional uses. Notably, thaumaturgic dust is used for recombination. Now let's go over each building in turn and go over how, exactly, they work. One of the most important buildings is for shipping. This is the mechanic that allows you to trade the resources you've gathered up for actual items and currency that are of use to you in the rest of the game. Simply load up a boat with resources and a crew, then wait an amount of real time and collect a boatload of rewards. Each boat you send out is loaded up with a shipment, a pile of resources you want to trade away. Upon the boat's successful return, each of those resources is exchanged for regular PoE rewards. The types of rewards you receive in return depend on both the types of resources you're shipping as well as the port you're shipping to. We don't know much about what each resource and port rewards. That's something we'll have to figure out for ourselves once the league is live. However, the devs have stated that crops tend to return currency, and trading with Kalguur is a source of runes for runesmithing. In addition to resources, you can also load your boat up with workers, forming the boat's crew. Crew members reduce the risk meter by an amount relative to their trait tier. Higher tier workers will allow you to ship more resources at a time, with little to no risk. Crew members that are lost to risks can be permanently killed, so be careful about who you send with each shipment. Bad things can happen to your shipment in transit. Raids by pirates, for one. As you fill a shipment with more and more resources, a risk meter will fill up. This meter denotes a percentage chance of something going wrong with your shipment, with higher percentages also causing more severe outcomes to be more likely if something does go wrong. The only bad outcome we currently know about is pirates commandeering your ship. When a pirate boards your ship, they will take your entire crew and your shipment hostage. You have 3 options for what to do in this situation. First, you can fight the bandit as a boss. If you win, in addition to valuable boss loot, your crew and shipment will be freed. You only get 1 portal, however, and if you lose, everything is lost. Second, you can pay the bandit a ransom, which will be an amount of gold. If you pay the ransom, you get your shipment and crew back, but don't get any of the loot from the boss fight. Third, you can simply abandon them all. This is the same as failing the boss fight. You lose both your crew and your shipment. It could be that if you want to farm the boss, that you might want some amount of risk. And taking on more risk lets you send out boats that are overflowing with resources. But you don't want to lose everything to bad luck, so don't go too crazy with the risk taking. Each shipment is sent to trade with a specific port. In addition to each port having different rewards they send back with your shipment, they also are each a different distance away, meaning each port will take a different amount of real time to complete a shipment to. Keep in mind when you'll next be logged into PoE when determining what ports to ship to. You don't want to have a shipment return an hour after you fall asleep and lose out on many hours of potential shipping time. So how exactly do you get all those resources for shipping? The majority of the resources consist of ores and the bars you can smelt them into. Ore represents the actual in-game map mechanic for this league, the thing you'll actually be doing in zones and maps. Kinda crazy that we're this far into the video and only just now starting to talk about the actual gameplay, but hey, there's a lot to this one. Each area that you enter during the Settlers League will have 1 of 5 deposits of ore in it. These ores are not created equal. Some of these ores are rarer than others, and each has a unique encounter type associated with them. Let me go over each of these encounters real quick. Crimson Iron is surrounded by 2 to 5 spawners spawning demons. When you kill a spawner, the remaining spawners heal to full, get stronger, and spawn enemies faster. The encounter is successful once you have defeated all of the spawners. Ore Smelting is surrounded by packs of demons. Once you kill all the demons, you get a shrine buff for a brief period of time. Upon clicking, Petrified Amber starts an encounter where you have to defend the amber from hordes of attacking enemies. If successful, you get the remaining amber at the end of the encounter. Bismuth is a bit more complicated. It is guarded by packs of magic and rare monsters. These monsters have an extra elemental aligned modifier on each of them. Once you kill all of these monsters, you can click the bismuth, causing elemental modifiers to be applied to remaining magic and rare monsters in the zone, giving them increased difficulty and rewards. Similarly to wisps from Affliction, each magic and rare monster has a percentage chance of gaining these elemental modifiers, with league monsters having a lower chance of gaining them. It's apparently possible for a zone to have more than 1 bismuth encounter. And finally, Verisium. Verisium is the rarest of the ores. In order to start the encounter, you click and hold on the Verisium, spawning the monsters you have to kill. This encounter works similarly to Crucible. The longer you hold down and channel the Verisium, the more monsters that will spawn, the stronger those monsters will be, and the greater your rewards will be. In addition to these 5 encounters, there's also a rare variant of the Verisium encounter. You can find an entrance to a boss arena, and upon killing the boss, gain huge quantities of Verisium. Doing these encounters and maps is only the start, however. This ore is unprocessed and cannot yet be shipped or smelted. This leads us to the mining building. You will need to assign workers to process the ore you've collected, turning it into metal that can be traded. This simply requires waiting some amount of real time as they process the ore, one at a time. This ore can now be shipped, or it can be used at the smelting building to turn into bars. What does this entail? I have absolutely no idea. There's not been a single scrap of preview footage or screenshots showing off this building. It might work exactly the same as mining, we just don't know. Next up is the Disenchanting building, your source for thaumaturgic dust. The Disenchanting window consists of a large inventory you can deposit equipment into. This equipment will be destroyed, turning into dust. Like everything else, this process takes time, and you need to assign workers to speed it up. Rare items with higher tier affixes and unique items of higher tiers will grant the most thaumaturgic dust, so if you're gated by time, choose your items carefully if you want to maximize the dust you earn. And the last resource, crops, comes from farming. Farming is the simplest of them all. You simply pick a crop and assign workers to the building, and they generate that resource for you over time. Easy. And for the final building you can assign workers to, we have one of the most exciting of them all, the Kalguuran Map Device. This building allows you to assign NPC workers to automatically run maps for you. You simply supply the maps and show up to collect the loot. The way this works is interacting with the map device will bring up a queue of maps. Simply deposit maps into the queue, and your runners will complete them from left to right. It's currently unknown if you can put anything you want in here, or if there are any restrictions on what maps can be put in. Unique maps or blighted maps may not work, for instance. The loot you acquire from auto-run maps is simulated loot that you would actually get from running that map. For instance, if you put a Guardian map in the device, you would get a Guardian fragment as loot, provided your workers successfully clear the map. It's unclear currently what the limitations of this simulation are. It's known that you can get delirium splinters from a map with delirium orbs on it, but it's unknown if you can get loot from randomly spawning League mechanics, other sources of loot inside maps, or if map drops respect Atlas adjacency. What is known is that the simulated loot drops do not respect your Atlas or your Atlas passives. This most likely applies to divination cards scryed to drop in other maps as well. Your worker's ability to fully clear these maps is not guaranteed, however. When you hover over a map in the queue, you'll get a tooltip showing you the expected outcomes for running that map based on the currently assigned workers. Workers can fail to fully clear a map, the equivalent of a player running out of portals. Expected map completion shows you a range of percentages of what percentage of the map your workers are projected to clear. Expected map completion time shows you how long it will take for your workers to successfully complete that map. And, most importantly, risk of death tells you the odds that a worker will permanently die running that map. The odds of a worker permanently dying scales with the difficulty of the map, higher tier maps and more affixes raising the odds. That's all for buildings tied into resources and mechanics, but there are, if you can believe it, a few more mechanics to go over. Namely, a number of crafting and services that are available in King's March. First up is Runesmithing. Runesmithing is a new form of item enchantments that can be applied to non-unique weapons in exchange for runes. Each crafting recipe applies an enchantment to a specific type of weapon. For example, only one-handed axes. The effects themselves are mostly variants of modifiers that have previously only existed on unique items, allowing you to get these effects on rare weapons and weapon types they previously weren't available for. As runesmithing enchantments cannot exist on unique items, effects that cause an item to upgrade to unique, such as Orbs of Chance, will not work on them. This one is technically considered a building, but you can't assign workers to it. Instead, new crafting recipes are unlocked as you upgrade it. Next is a big one, the return of Recombination. King's March features a recombination bench allowing you to recombine items, a powerful form of item crafting returning from Sentinel League. Simply put 2 items in the bench, the resulting item will have one of the 2 item bases and a combination of affixes from across the 2 items. Recombination costs gold and thaumaturgic dust from disenchanting items. The amount of each scales with the item levels of the combined items. Recombination has been described as nerfed from its original form, but it's currently unclear how much has actually been changed. The only thing we know so far is that the powerful affixes that could rarely be added to items through recombination have been removed. That's it for crafting, but there's also a few services that seem to serve as gold sinks. The first of these is the black market. The black market allows you to purchase a random equipment item of a specific item type for gold, allowing you to convert your excess gold into targeted rare items. These items are better rolled than the usual rare items that drop on the ground. They use the increased modifier tier rating effect from Necropolis League to generate items that are much better on average than items you'd find dropping off monsters. If you can farm enough gold to make use of it, this might be a good way to acquire strong base items for further crafting or recombination. And then we get to what is probably the most game-changing feature of the entire league, the currency exchange. The currency exchange allows players to asynchronously and instantaneously buy and sell currency and stackable items with each other. No longer will you have to whisper 100 players before someone responds, or deal with the annoyance of price fixers. You simply select what currency you have, what you want for it, and what the ratio you're looking for is. If it's available at that exchange rate, you can instantly make that exchange. Otherwise, you create a sell order and have to wait for another player to exchange those items at that rate. The game will default to the most common current market ratio, however, making buying and selling currency a breeze. For sell orders you've listed, the currency exchange will work to fill it, whether you're there, grinding out maps, or even offline. Each order you place costs a small amount of gold. This is to prevent price fixers and flippers from just sitting in their hideout, ruining the economy. You have to actually play PoE and earn gold to use the exchange. Despite the name, the currency exchange encompasses far more than just currency orbs. Every stackable item in the game is available for exchange. Scarabs, map fragments, oils, and so much more. And finally, as a minor feature, you can respec your character for gold, with the gold cost scaling with your character's level. Neat! And that's it for all of the mechanics in Settlers of Kalguur. Now comes the fun part. Going over what all this means, possible farming strategies, and build implications so that you can start the league a bit ahead of everyone else. The first thing I want to talk about is recombination, because recombination's mere existence is economy warping. For those who didn't play during Sentinel League, magic and rare items were actually worth a significant amount of currency that league because they could be used as fodder for recombination. Players were identifying every rare amulet that dropped. They were stacking modifiers that caused items to drop corrupted because, at the time, that meant they would drop identified, and then their loot filter could show them items with good affixes. Even more extreme, players were using a little-known unique called Cloak of Tamir Isley to cause magic items to drop identified, because even a magic item with a single good affix on it could be worth multiple divines. I expect most of this will be true for Settlers as well, especially the Cloak of Tamir Isley, which I expect to replace magic finding as the new way to scale your loot by equipping terrible unique items. Beyond the value of fodder items, it's worth pointing out that recombination seems to have a hefty gold and dust cost attached to it. We don't currently know which of the two will end up being the bottleneck, but you should definitely focus on maximizing your dust gains because those are time-gated. Even if you don't plan on doing any recombination yourself, you can still make a huge profit off it. Crafters will want to recombine items en masse, but will be prevented by having no gold, as many crafters simply spend the first few weeks of the league in their hideout crafting. These crafters will almost definitely be looking to pay other players to make use of their recombination devices, allowing you to turn your excess gold and dust into what will likely be massive profits. The next thing you should keep in mind for this league is the price of maps. I expect them to reach an all-time high this league. Every single player in the game will have 3 automated map devices which will be burning through maps non-stop, even while you're logged off and asleep. This is going to lead to the demand for maps absolutely skyrocketing. You'll need an absolutely massive number of them to keep your map devices churning out loot for you. You're going to want to find a way to massively oversustain maps, if only to fill your own map devices. And there will likely be huge profit in selling desirable maps to other players who are unable to oversustain themselves. Speaking of burning maps, let's talk about the Kalguuran Map Device. This thing looks to be extremely powerful, generating entire maps of loot for you while you go off and farm maps of loot yourself. Or, take a nap. It's currently unclear what the optimal strategy for this is going to be, as we don't currently know how far we can realistically push our workers. Can they run unique maps? Blighted maps? T17 maps? Despite this, I'd like to talk about a number of strategies that could end up being wildly profitable. First of all, I think you should be careful to focus on your per map profit and not on the overall revenue you're pulling in. I expect maps to be more expensive than ever, and focusing on strategies that have lower upfront costs might end up being the right call. A strategy that really capitalizes on this is adjacent map farming. If some maps with good layouts are worth a ton, have your map runners run an adjacent map with a terrible layout, which will presumably be very cheap, even in bulk. Because it's an adjacent map, it should return some amount of whatever the in-demand valuable map is, turning a huge profit. The simplest option, though, is to just stuff your map devices full of high-density maps with poor layouts. Generally speaking, the maps with the worst layouts in the game are given more monsters to compensate. But your NPCs don't care about how bad the layout is. You simply get more loot per map by making them run maps with poor layouts. And if you have to buy those maps in bulk, they'll be far cheaper too. If you can put blighted or unique maps in the map device, those will likely be extremely profitable. Imagine waking up to a cache of silver and gold oils, or boatloads of currency from Malkoon or Harbinger maps. One option that should have very steady returns is Guardian maps. Elder Guardian maps in particular are usually worth about as much as the fragment you get as guaranteed drop, allowing you to run these maps for effectively free, if you can get your workers to consistently clear them, that is. A more niche option would be putting in maps with implicits on them from the Shadow Shaping Atlas Keystone. These maps can't really be reliably farmed or bought in bulk, but they should return extra rewards if you can get your hands on them. And finally, if your workers are actually capable of handling delirium maps, you can put delirium morbs on the maps you have them run to massively juice the loot you're getting. Something you've probably noticed is that nearly everything requires gold. If you run out, your workers stop working and you stop bringing in passive income, with recombination and the black market requiring you to have a massive excess of gold to use. Which means you're going to want to figure out how to farm gold. Absolutely massive quantities of it. We don't know for certain what those gold farming methods are going to look like yet. It could just be that you just naturally get more as you juice maps, and that's good enough. But there may end up being ways to focus specifically on gold, like filling your maps with unique monsters and map bosses, running blighted maps for the huge quantity of monsters, or doing ultimatums for the same reason. When it comes to shipping, well, the strategy is pretty straightforward. You're going to want to max out your harbor as soon as possible. This will let you get all 3 ships and keep the ships bringing in loot. You're going to want to focus on filling port orders, ideally in a single shipment, while making sure you have enough remaining resources to instantly fill whatever new order replaces it. In addition, you're going to want to manage the timing for when your boats return. You're not going to want them to return while you're asleep or not logged in, because then you miss out on valuable shipping time. Simply put, you need to stay on top of all the other mechanics in King's March to make sure you don't fall behind on shipments. Beyond that, there's not much you can do to increase your shipping loot other than waiting. Or is there? There is one thing that has occurred to me. Alt accounts. In every single game I've ever played that had both an economy and real-time loot reward mechanics, creating alt characters or accounts was the #1 farming method. Presumably, everything in King's March is account bound as opposed to character bound, with the intention being that that limits how much you can profit off its time-gated mechanics. But Path of Exile is a free-to-play game. A 1 per account restriction isn't a restriction at all. You simply make more accounts and level a character on each. Now, something I want to point out for people who may not know, yes, you are in fact allowed to have additional PoE accounts. As many as you would like, in fact. The only notable restrictions are that you can't have more than 2 instances of PoE running on a single physical computer at a time, can't use VM software, and inputs can only be sent to 1 client at a time, no multiboxing. Each alt you create effectively multiplies all of your loot from every single real-time mechanic. Not just the shipping rewards, but the automated map devices too. And the dust you get from disenchanting items. Remember, you'll be able to sell that dust to crafters in the form of selling recombination services. It's worth noting that this is only viable if you're not primarily constrained by gold. The idea being that if you have more gold than you know what to do with on your main account, then why are you wasting your time continuing to play on it? If you spend that same amount of time doing the exact same content on an alt account, you'll get all the same loot you normally would, while also getting gold that can be spent to queue up passive income in King's March. And given the existence of massive gold sinks in the form of Recombination and the black market, I find it difficult to imagine that you won't be able to massively overfarm the gold you need to continuously run shipping and mapping on multiple alts. This is something I definitely intend to explore myself. Keep an eye out for future videos on this topic. As for build considerations, with most of the League mechanics not really being gameplay focused, there's not much to consider. However, something of note is that you're not going to be able to farm tons of resources to ship by playing a move speed build, tagging the ore nodes, and burning maps. Because ore needs to be processed first, you'll still be constrained by the processing timers. Beyond that, you should pick a build that minimizes its use of unique items. Runesmithing enchantments can't be used on unique items, and builds with fewer uniques will be able to make better use of recombination. And finally, Atlas strategies. A lot of the exact details are unknown right now, but the broad things you'll want to consider focusing on are oversustaining maps, gold farming, specialty map farming, and getting recombination fodder. Oversustaining is simple. Just take every map atlas passive and juice the heck out of your maps. For gold farming, you may want to consider running the Maven influence on your maps, or the Shrines That Spawn Map Bosses scarab for additional gold drops. Alternately, Rogue Exiles or Ultimatum may be good League mechanics to focus on for gold. And if the automated Atlas devices really can run blighted maps and Guardian maps, An Atlas strategy focusing on farming these could be incredibly lucrative. You wouldn't have to run them yourself or try to bulk sell them. Just drop them in your automated map device and get back to farming. This last one may take a few weeks to pop off, but eventually there will be huge demand for fodder for recombination. Drop-only affixes from Delve and Incursion being especially notable, as many builds will have best-in-slot items that want one or more of these affixes. Whew, it's been a long one, but at long last, that's it. In the description and comments below, I've linked my written guide for settlers of Kalguur with all the information we have available to us currently. This guide will be updated as we learn more, so you ought to bookmark it to stay up to date on everything. I'd also love to hear what you guys are thinking about settlers. Any dream items you're hoping to recombine this league? Spicy ideas for using the auto map device? If you found this video helpful, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. What?